Hi everybody. This video is going to be a video about how I would take notes uh, using this material compared to material in class. So we had a video showing, or kind of a video lecture about this kind of stuff, the old models of electricity, nature of electricity, and it doesn't really make sense to take notes just word for word off the PowerPoint. You could, and it would do something, but I don't think it's the most efficient way to take notes. So what we're going to do instead is basically go through the PowerPoint and make questions. And the goal is to have a big list of questions at the end of every PowerPoint or every lecture that you can use to study from. And if you create every question that I could come up with as the teacher, and you know the answer to all those questions, then the test becomes kind of trivial. So I'll show you what I mean here. We're going to take this first slide. There's not a ton that I would, not a ton of questions you can pull from here. It says early on scientists figure out you could charge objects. So maybe you could say, what did early scientists figure out about electricity? Maybe as a short answer question. And you'll note I have a short answer multiple choice notepad. And then I have a long answer or lists and diagrams. Kind of two different styles of questions that I think could get grouped together. So I split up my questions that I make into two. So yeah, maybe they figured out you could charge objects and some objects were attracted or repelled. So we could say like 2 just after that. So we know that there's 2 points we need to remember. And next slide, we have the two fluid model. So we could say a very easy one is who is responsible for the two fluid model. Excuse me. And that would be Charles Dufay, right? And he said electricity was made up of two fluids with different charges. And he said that there were two fluids, so we could say what are the two fluids in the two fluid model? What were their charges? We could say maybe in positive and negative because we talk about that in the video. And what else do we have? An imbalance of these would create repulsion. So we kind of talk about the in the video we talk. There's a little diagram that we're drawing about objects and whether or not they're vitreous or resonance or neutral, right? So we would maybe put that into our diagram section. We could say draw a diagram that shows a let's say neutrally charged object using the two fluid model. And then we could also put that to excuse me, put that to positively. Oops. And we could use negatively as well. So those questions are good diagram questions for sure. But I don't mind when I'm doing these to have a bit of overlap on my questions because this question could show up as a diagram question or it could show up as a multiple choice or short answer question. So I would also put it into my short answer section that says something like, what is occurring in a neutrally positively and negatively charged object according to the two fluid model. So this could very easily be a short answer question, or one part of this could be a multiple choice. What's happening in a neutrally charged object in the two fluid model? That could be a multiple choice question. So I would put it here. I would put it in the long answer lists and diagrams, because I think it could take either form, and your answer is going to be slightly different for each of those. Our next section is our one fluid model. Nice thing about this is we can kind of just take all of this and tweak it to who's responsible for the one fluid model, and this we could say two people because there's 2 points there. This one doesn't quite make sense in the one fluid, but we could say, how is the one fluid different from the two fluid model? Because that's kind of what happened time-wise. If you watch the video, we talk about how these guys came along and we're like, oh no, this is our model, it's different. And we think this is right because whatever. And this is a very useful question, even for the one fluid model. And then we can kind of duplicate these as well. And if you want to, you could just use the PowerPoints to do this. But like I said, we did some drawing in this one, we did some drawing in this one. Probably useful to watch the video and do this. You can pause and start the video while you're making these questions. That's what I would do. I do it alongside the video often, or I watch it once and then go through it again and write these down. And then finally we get to the old models of electricity, or sorry, the final slide of the old models of electricity. And we do see a list here. There's a 1 and a 2, so we can put that into our list. What are the two things that the old models of electricity both got correct? And something is red or bolded, which means it's almost certainly going to be on the test. What is the law of attraction and repulsion? So once you guys have this all finished, once you went through and you have all your questions, and keep in mind you might have more or less questions than other people, but that's one of the nice things is you can share them with people. You can share your questions, give each other your quizzes basically. But once you have your questions, what you should be doing to study off of these things is taking away the PowerPoint and just looking at the list of questions you've made. And you try and answer them. You say, what did the early scientists figure out about electricity? Well, I can't remember. It's too early. So if I don't know it, I'm going to go like this. I'm going to say star, star, star. I'm going to go find out. Early on, scientists figured out you could charge objects. So charge objects is one of them. And some objects repelled one another while others attracted. So that's the second one. Okay, those are the 2 points I need to know. And that star means I didn't get it. Then I move to the next one. Who's responsible for the two fluid model? I know that's Charles Dufay. So I don't have to put a star next to that one. I know that one. What are the two fluids in the two fluid model? I know it's vitreous and resinous, but I don't really know what charge they are. I can't remember which one it is. So we'll put a star next to that and we'll go find out. In this case, it's not on the slide. We'd have to watch the video to find out. And once you go through all the questions, you can go back through them doing just the star ones. Because if you already know this one, you're good. But this one you didn't know. So do the star ones. And if you don't, if you're like, okay, what did the early scientists figure out about electricity? I still don't know. You leave the star there and you check the answer. Then you keep going. What were their charges, positive or negative? Well, I know that vitreous was positive and resinous was negative. Okay, I know that one now, so I can take away the star. And once all the stars are gone, then it means you probably know all this stuff, right? Of course, I would do a refresher right before the test or the quiz or whatever, but that's how you're going to make sure you know all this stuff. And same thing goes with the long answer, right? You would play around with that stuff. I think there was a better list of questions that I did maybe the first time I did this video. So if you guys want, I'll put this up and you can take a look at it. So maybe a couple more questions there. But basically you're brainstorming as many questions as you can. You're going through them until you know them all. And then at that point, you should know everything about that test, right? Um, this is a really good way to study. It's a really good way to study with friends and with other people because everyone will come up with different questions. But there's only so many questions I can come up with from a limited amount of information. And once you guys have guessed as many as possible, you'll probably have guessed all the ones I'm going to put on the test or quiz or whatever assessment we do. So at that point, it becomes really easy. So hopefully this works for you. If it doesn't, we can try and figure out something that does. But it worked really well for me, and I think it should work well for most people. If you have trouble with it, feel free to shoot me a message and we can kind of workshop it for you, make it a little easier for you. But hopefully you guys have a good rest of the day. Hopefully this helped, and we'll see you later. Cheers.